So today I want to talk about Lilith and her willingness to help the crippled, her willingness to help the broken, and I will deeply go into why she is doing so and what are the challenges of the work for this profile of people. So let's start. This is something really personal to me because Lilith rose me from the ashes. She helped me to go from really terrible position in my life, and by telling this story I will definitely experience again few of the really traumatic events in my life while I am telling this. So my work with Lilith started in an extremely dark period of my life. I was extremely lonely and extremely suicidal. And at that point in my life, I was also vampirized by vampiric entities, by astral parasites, really intensely. And I needed some form of protection. I needed some form of guidance. I needed some form of guardianship. And I got a dream that I need to call Lilith upon. And I also studied spirit a lot and her power a lot. But I was afraid of summoning her because a lot of crazy rumors are floating around, and those rumors are distributed by either ill-intentional or ill-informed people. So I believed those rumors and I didn't call it immediately, but I stood in fear and I hesitated. But one of the good friends of mine suggested that I should call Lilith. And I listened to my friend and summoned entity, and it was one of the most profound experiences in my life. Lilith asked me to sign with me a pact of protection, in which she will protect me for set amount of days from vampiric attacks. And in that moment I felt her attaching herself to my aura, to my energy body, and I experienced the most intense feeling of protection I ever had. Like if you are baby again, like if you are in the mother's womb again, and nothing can harm you, nothing can protect you, and everything is already provided for you. And that feeling lasted for, I think, 27, 26 days. It was a period for which the pact was signed, and after that Lilith left. And then terror struck me again, and vampiric attacks struck me again, and it was a really terrifying experience for me. And Lilith came to me back again and told me that she will and should work with me more, and she appeared over and over again and demanded to work with me. And I hesitated a lot. I was running from her a lot. But she kept returning really aggressively. She wasn't aggressive in a predatory way, but she was all over the place. She was coming to me again and again and again and again. And it was intense. She was coming and coming and coming. And I tried to stop working, but whenever I stopped working, she kept coming. And then last year in March we actually started working really seriously, extremely seriously, extremely deeper than ever before. And she told me that the main point and focus of my work should be accepting of my identity, accepting of who I am, and helping other people to deal with the similar problems I have. If you don't know, I am born with severe case of cerebral paralysis, and due to the density and spasm in my muscles, I cannot walk properly. So it's a really hard issue for me, and it wasn't just a physical issue for me. In the past, it was a mental issue too, and a spiritual issue. I was unable to accept my present state to any degree. I am still rebelling against my state now in a negative way. But in the past, before I started working with Lilith, it was much more severe. So don't interpret what I say wrong. You indeed should thrive and try as much as you can to improve your health. But when we talk about chronic illnesses, you need to accept that in most cases you cannot be as healthy as normal person, because your illness is chronic and there is nothing you can do about it. Magic can help. You can, with magic and physical activity, definitely severely increase your health, but for some reason some people are destined to suffer from chronic illnesses, and sometimes you need to accept that state and live with that. Because if you don't, you not accepting the illness on psychological and spiritual level can be bigger problem than illness itself. And in most cases I found it to be the case for people struggling with chronic illnesses, because their own escapism and running from their own state is actually creating a bigger problem than the state itself. So last year, my main task while working with Lilith was to actually accept the state. And it was actually Lilith who initiated the series of events which forced me to accept my state to the full extent and to see it realistically as it should be seen, and to stop living non-beneficial life and having non-beneficial attitudes toward myself. Now when I ended this little confession, I think this was necessary for multiple reasons. But now when I ended my confession, I think we should start talking about actual topic of the video, which is how Lilith helps the crippled, the broken, and the left aside. So the main focus of Lilith with this group of people is first and foremost confrontation with the trauma which causes the impoverished state of the mind and spirit. This is the first step. But before confrontation of the trauma, what Lilith does is she nurtures the individual. She gives you the energy and prepares you for confronting your own traumas. And you will usually experience the intense feeling of protection and empowerment. And after that, you will be commanded and demanded to confront your own traumatic experiences. After you do that, then what Lilith does is she forces you to accept the situation as it is after the trauma is confronted. When you finish that, then you come to the fighting stage, which is you need to use all of your resources with her guidance to improve your situation. And in many ways, this will involve harnessing and awakening the dormant and the predatory aspects of the psyche in order to achieve your goals. You will be taught psychic vampirism, you will be taught curses, you will be taught baneful forms of alchemy, you will be taught forms of necromancy, you will be taught forms of vampiric soul travel, baneful sex magic. A lot of those things you need to defend yourself and to actually start harnessing the predatory aspect of your psyche, which was neglected, and use it in a useful way. But in case you overuse already your predatory forces within the psyche, then she will teach you to use it in a positive way for yourself and your environment. After you finish that stage, the fighting stage, then you have another stage, which is additional confrontation of the trauma. And then after you finish that, you will actually go into advanced self-mastery and transcending of weaknesses. So there is one side note here. She can leave you before the third stage or the fighting stage and give authority to some other related spirit to guide you. So don't be surprised. After she nurtures you and confronts you with the initial traumas, she can leave. And I saw this in many cases, that she left after initial confrontation and gave her students over to another entities, which is completely fine. There is one other thing you need to know with Lilith, okay? You cannot teach the Elder One, okay? If you continuously continue ignoring her advice, she will just leave. In some extreme cases of disrespect, she will attack, but in most cases she will leave. But sometimes she leaves just because her mission is completed for a time. If she left working with you, it doesn't mean she is dissatisfied. What it means is that she simply completed what she had to do with you at your stage of development. But what is really interesting is that when she leaves, she won't tell you she left. And what happened is that you will find yourself terrified, asking why she isn't there. But that's the test on itself, because there is a point of your journey in which you need to rely on yourself and apply what she taught you. And that's fine. But there is also one other thing which she teaches the people with chronic illnesses, and it is attuning yourself to vibration of your illness. You see, your illness is as much spiritual as it is physical, because physical body and spiritual body are connected. So if illness can't be cured, then the power of it can be harnessed. You can use your illness as an advantage to improve your baneful magic, your vampirism, the density of your aura, the power of your rites and rituals, and also the power of your psyche. There is certain spiritual current, as you will, which every illness possesses. And that spiritual current can be harnessed. Illness can be seen as energy pool. This is an unorthodox approach indeed, but this is one Lilith teaches. If you cannot kill the snake, join it. That's the point. Now, working with this actually is really difficult, because before being able to harness the power of your illness, to use it for practical purposes, you will be forced to confront with all of its difficulties and limitations first. And it will be dramatic, it will be traumatic, it will be extremely intense. So, once you start dealing with that, I suggest calling Lilith for empowerment daily. And while you are doing so, keep your aura cleansed and energy centers in good order, because you are entering really risky territory. And the thing with Lilith is, if you are a handicapped individual, I won't say handicapped individual because that's disempowering term. If you are individual with chronic health anomaly, which cannot be cured, or chronic mental anomaly, which cannot be cured, or really intense trauma, which needs hard work to solve. And I need to correct myself, no mental illness can be cured. When I say mental illness which can be cured, I just refer to illnesses of mental nature and spiritual nature which are difficult to cure. But as far as I know, there is no uncurable mental illness. I know of so far. All of them can be cured. But for physical illnesses, in my experience, that's another story. If you have one of those disadvantages, either difficult mental condition, or chronic illness, or really intense trauma, what you can use as a privilege while you work with Lilith is, you can ask for spiritual guardians immediately. You can ask her to assume you and to give you spiritual entities which will protect you from attacks. And since Lilith has soft spot for individuals with such problems, she will give you guardians extremely quickly if you are respectful. And I suggest for you to be aware that if you have those problems and you are respectful, Lilith has soft spot for you. So be aware of that and try to obtain from her as much tools as possible before you start working. But when you start working, you need to actually listen to her advice, okay? Because if you don't listen to her advice over and over again, she can just leave, as I said earlier. And keep in mind that merging with her will bring many challenges. But if you are one of the people mentioned in this video, she has a soft spot for you, and be respectful and don't be afraid. And when I say soft spot, I mean really a big soft spot. I mean, I saw people with those kinds of problems getting off with something other types of individuals wouldn't survive to do. But knowing this, don't be disrespectful and don't be ungrateful. Appreciate the fact that you have soft spot in her, that she is really willing to help you as this profile of individual. But don't try to abuse it, okay? Because spirits cannot be manipulated, okay? Once you call the entity, she is able to read your thoughts, read your mind, intentions, and you cannot trick something which is 10 times more transcendental than you are. At least in this state of awareness. So, to conclude this video, you need to be willing to make changes. And those steps I gave are like a broad overview of your path, but path of each individual is different. So I can speak only from my personal experience. So those are some patterns I saw in large numbers of people, in large number of cases, but you can have deviations. So praise Lilith, and thanks for watching, and see you in next video in this series.